out and about doing about to do a couple's date, so yeah, they might be listening and why they're doing it. So we'll do this. We got this. All right, let's go back. We're going to go back a couple paragraphs to page 56, where it says, ready to start. Our counterterrorism. I'll give it 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. Our counterterrorism will bring on a stage, on a stage 2 fascist repression. There is no question in our minds, black people, men under hatchets, about the nature of the ruling class. The exceedingly violent disposition of the USA ruling class is well documented with just a glance into our lives and the order of our deaths. The point is to reveal this senseless violence to the entire revolutionary class or classes. Counterterrorism is a mighty tool and the only one that at our disposal in the opening stage of the People's War. In some cases, in other revolutionary societies, this level of violence alone was sufficient to win all demands of the people. However, I am sure that here it will not be sufficient because of the complexities of the USA. Class structure and its stockpile of potential further violence, many of the small demands of the sizable portions of the population are solely being met at the expense of all the rest of us and the world's people. The new pig-oriented class has been created at the bottom of our society, from which the ruling class will be always able to draw some support. Consequently, our task will be to move from counter-terroristic tactics into a second stage of a larger guerrilla unit operation. So they're saying that the state is the terrorist attacks, and they're saying that the organizations of the proletariat and of the most disciplined of the proletariat into a guerrilla force we're countering their terroristic attacks towards us. So when they mean counter-terrorists, they mean us as we create revolution. Over 90% of the USA's population lives in cities and towns. And although some of the principles of classic Mao She style guerrilla operation must be used to stop the orderly flow of intercity and interstate commerce, most of the real fighting must take place inside the nerve centers of the nation, the cities. This is entirely new situation in the development of the People's War. Whereas the classic type of the third world movements generally rely upon the strangling of provincial capitals, where the enemy colonial power tend to concentrate itself in urban guerrilla warfare, where the colonies can be said to be situated within the city. The process or tactics will be unique, and that's the difference. That's the development of Maoism and the People's Protracted War, is that Maoism was from the countryside surrounding the cities. Now, since we're all concentrated in these cities and forced to go into these dwellings, we are forced to switch tactics and do the urban guerrilla warfare out into the countryside, in the town centers. These are the nerve centers, as he says, of the capitalist society. Though the basic strategy is the same, urban guerrilla warfare differs from all that has ever taken place in the arena of guerrilla against the God state. There are similarities between our situation and that of the growing movement of that Uruguayan people, and perhaps we can draw from their experience. But to be realistic, the disparity in size and populations, the relative strength of the enemy state situation, and their global sweep must seriously be taken into account. Uruguay, as a colony of the Anglo-America, defeat of the Uruguayan this is hard government, and a change in the present property relations would of necessity mean the defeat of a section of the American imperialist infrastructure, because they're being imperialized, and America has influence. The comparison being between themselves and the Algerian liberation experience is almost unattainable, though there may be some small tactical lessons to be gleaned from their urban efforts. It must be kept in mind that the principal battles that led to the people's victory were fought on the countryside between the massive French mechanized divisions and the classical guerrilla army of the people. The battles for Algiers was only aided by the forces within. The people's fifth column within the city of Algiers was not the model of perfection, simply because the principal effort, energy, and motive forces were located in classical guerrilla units that engaged the French expeditionary forces for control of the countryside. At issue there in Algiers were such things as crude petroleum, 62% of the nation's export, agricultural products, 18%, and some iron ore. All these basic raw materials were, of course, located in the countryside and had to be protected by the French. The war for control over the USA is unique in that its heartbeat can be stopped only by placing our primary forces in the valleys and defiles of its city streets. So they're giving us tactics. They're giving us models on what and how we can pursue a people's war inside the urban centers. So they're giving us blueprints, playbooks, and strategies that could possibly be utilized within this framework. And now they're saying that, like, the other instance were different because of their material conditions. USA is the colonial master, the center of the imperial process where the raw materials are worked into finished manufacturing products to be circulated back into the exterior and the interior colonies. Do you see? Taking and extracting resources through imperialism, bringing them to the metropoles, producing, like they said, here we go, the US is colonial master, the center of imperial process where raw materials are worked into finished manufacturing products to be recirculated back into the exterior and interior colonies. So they're taking these things. What we want is these colonies that the US maintains. We want to destroy that, and we want to remove the USA and give those used to be colonies self-determination and sovereignty for their own use. So they can produce the raw materials into fullness and to present it to the global economy. Like, it's the opposite. We take and we make, and then we redistribute it back. In comparison of the classical form of war of liberation fought in the outlying colonies and the one we must yet formulate, a vital question is immediately brought to our attention. Does it work in such a totally different setting? The reason why I'm reading so well, I think, today is because I actually did some exercising and I actually read some Lenin today. So it prepared me for this, I think. A theoretical examination indicates that it does. In fact, urban people's guerrilla war may prove to be an even more effective tool than the classical type. Again, adapting, being fluid to the situations and the conditions. The same advantages. Let's see who is still in here. One person. Well, there might be. The same advantages are present. The same possibilities, plus some that exist simply because the fight is taking place within the cities, the nerve centers of the nation. The enemy culture, the established government exists first of all because its ability to govern, to maintain enough order to ensure that a cycle of sorts exists between the various levels and elements of society, quote, law and order, end quote, is their objective. Ours is, quote, perfect disorder, end quote. Our aim to stop the life cycle of the enemy culture and replace it with our own revolutionary culture. Hey, Coco. This can be done only by creating perfect disorder within the cycle of the enemy culture's life process and leaving a power vacuum to be filled by our building revolutionary culture. There are not a lot of people here today, but oh well. When the fight takes place within the cities, the disorder will clearly be hastened. This will have the immediate effect. This will have an immediate effect on our consciousness of the bulk of the population and will strain the relationships between government and governed to the utmost. If the life of the manufacturing cities is to be stopped, it is clear that the normal process, at least, will be slowed by a convoy of established trucks, tanks, and troops, simply moving in the city's arteries, where commercial convoys should be moving. The necessary checkpoints will further slow it. Each one, see, he's telling us what we can do. Each one of the opposition's own tank shell, that is, fire inside the manufacturing city at the elusive guerrilla, will destroy some aspects of that factory city and undercut the ability of the establishment of producing another tank shell. It will not help the fascist cause very much at all when the armored personnel carriers or Jeep patrol equipped with 30 caliber machine guns fires into the downtown shopping crowd at a elusive guerrilla who has taken refuge among them. The people just will not understand. The cities of fascist USA, built straight up and with very little real planning or pattern. The twisting side streets, gangways, connecting roofs, manholes, storm drains, concrete and steel trees will hide the guerrilla army just as effectively as any forest. There is an added advantage that just being in the area doesn't automatically make one suspect and fair game, as is the case when the establishment army unit spots a gathering, no matter how innocent, in an area where guerrilla movement have been reported in the countryside. Just being out there defines them. The fact that a guerrilla can hide himself fairly easily inside large population centers does not mean that hard work need not be done towards the winning of popular support. So they need to win mass-based support in order to support the guerrilla forces. It simply means that failure to gain, quote, full support for violent confrontation doesn't preclude violent confrontation. If all the elements exist that have made guerrilla warfare in its classical style an invincible weapon against mechanized industrial-based armies in underdeveloped areas, they will be even more successful in building up urban American conditions. Yes, it's educational purposes only. The fact that making it impossible for the establishment army to overcome the attacking guerrilla armies in spite of the availability of the knowledge contained in the master works of guerrilla strategy. So we need to study guerrilla tactics and guerrilla strategies. Yay, you got a new bed, sweet. Become clear when we realize that after the strategies is understood by guerrilla chief, the tactics applicable to his particular military problems, quote, are a product of his imagination alone, end quote. A constant creative improvising. Also, working against the establishment general staff in its own mentality. They've convinced themselves, or have been convinced, that their experience at war with other mechanized armies that, quote, having the most at the right time, end quote, wins wars. So we need to study their tactics and how they deploy them and stuff. We need to understand them too. In other words, they feel that winning wars depends mainly on gadgets, and they presume that they can dictate the terms of grounds upon which each battle takes place. They're locked in on a fixed set of systemized ideas that conflict completely with the realities of the People's War. Their egos simply will never allow them to admit that all the ingenuity that has gone into the development of a Blitzkrieg has been wasted. A $100,000 tank can be destroyed within $2 worth of materials. Oh God. Oh wait, cool. A jet is useless against a rifleman, and it also can be destroyed with one well-placed burst from an assault rifle or destroyed on the ground. Salam alaikum. In general, by mortars from miles away. So it can take cheap military gears to destroy a high-tech military gear. Then too, the pilot, years in the making, can be unalived with a knife. The copter as a fighting machine is the most unintelligent of all the costly gadgets. It can be heard from miles away. It can't be armored. A 10-cent bullet can render it useless. It can't be armored. All of these contraptions require liquid fuels that will stop flowing when the production of all other commodities stop. Fighting really depends upon people and small, easily machined portable weapons. Another factor that works to the advantage of the guerrilla army is time. That's why it's called protracted People's War. The establishment forces cannot survive a prolonged unrest that is steadily building. Profit falls. The point is diminishing returns is eventually reached. The establishment forces the energy goes into its last stage of life. While our new revolutionary culture is building musical chairs where each go around it includes some element of their control factors. So he's talking about, like, as we do these things, we have to develop a mass base of revolutionary structures that support the people and support the revolutionary forces that are going against the state-ready machines. The objective, I repeat, of the destruction of the city-based industrial establishment and its protective forces is to create perfect disorder, to disrupt all of their enacting processes that allow them to produce and distribute goods. And this can be done from within the process much more easily than from without. Really, there is no possibility of an establishment government ever overcoming and determined internal enemies. By their very nature, the quote holder or quote owner and his guard are exposed and vulnerable. A comparison between their modes of existence and that of the people's vanguard elements employing all the subtle scientific principles of urban guerrilla warfare will demonstrate clearly where the real power lies. We gotta employ these things to understand the weaknesses and where the like you said, where the power lies. Top heavy establishment organization that exists openly are always a reflection of the men who staff them. Of primary interest to the guerrilla are the bureaucratic institutions that serve to protect the rights of the wrongdoers to do their wrong. The local and federal pig establishments. The complexities of the class structure have shifted somewhat since the time of Marx and Lenin. Presently within the working class, and it's probably shifted since he wrote this book. But it's a very good look at like what's happening now. So not only things have changed, but he's also demonstrated that these things still exist now because we have some understanding of this too. Presently with the working class, there exists an ultra-right section at the bottom of this structure which feels that all of its demands on life can be met by the existing order. I think he's talking about the aristocracy. In fact, the working class of the USA in 1971 can be realistically divided into two mutually exclusive and conflicting sections. This is a class analysis, I think. One right-orientated and conservative, and the other left to neutral. One explanation for this phenomenon is the loss over the years to fascist nationalistic propaganda and state-controlled unions. You hear that? Unions. That's why we need red unions. A reorganization, an overthrow of the existing unions. Because again, let's read this again. One explanation for this phenomenon is the loss over the years, in brackets, to fascist nationalistic propaganda and state-controlled unions of the clear-cut class consciousness. In effect, it can be said that this right-orientated sector of the working class is a new class, a new pig class. In their ranks, we find a factory of construction workers and ubiquitous civil service employees, the retired military career man, the man who sells used autos or insurance, the stock clerk and longshoreman about to be replaced by a machine, because the longshoreman strike happened in a split second due to mechanized machines replacing labor. All of this, individuals are not clearly in the new pig class. Some only have just one foot in the grave, as yet they only have pig tendencies. So pig class and pig tendencies are different and can still be redeemed. You can say pig tendencies, you could also say liberal tendencies, but pig tendencies is dead on. Outright pigs must be either neutralized or destroyed, killed. From the new pig class, a section of the working class whose demands are small and are being slowly met by the capitalist masters. Again, trying to pacify the masses. The government draws its greatest support. The forces of counter-revolution makes themselves felt on the street level through this new class. While above this class, in the loosely defined petite bourgeoisie level of the upper middle class, professional and students can find some very real revolutionary consciousness. There are exceptions for this complex, because it's a case-by-case thing, I think. Inverted stratification of revolutionary potential. The history of the USA and its immigrants. The emphasis placed on subversion of the workers' movement, the unions, by a ruling class, and the apparent non-real stabilizing of the economy of fascist Keynesian control of redoubled imperialist expansion. All can be carefully treated to explain the present confusion and contradictions in class struggle, but most of this I leave to Comrade Newton, who has handled it very well so far. This is the comment on what to do with what we have and what we are realistically faced with. The top-heavy bureaucratic agencies that exist within quasi-social sanctions, and in particular, the ones that are given over the maintenance of law and order, drawing their principal personnel from the pig class, and consequently are the expression of that class's mentality. A stagnant, even, oh my gosh, it's activistic mentality that is completely dependent upon regimen and route to perform the simplest functions. First of all, the opposition is unintelligent. However, let me qualify the statement with the observation that they make up for what they lack in brains with sheer brutality. As a result of their original drawbacks, unintelligent, they have expanded to massive proportions and tied themselves irrevocably to the technology based on massive and equal faulty machines to the point to the point now that it is impossible for them to hide any of their movements, to move with any real speed, or to change other themselves to respond to any change in our attacks. The very nature of their apparatus, its supposed legality, and its size tends to weaken it. Their growing demands for personnel leaves them helpless to stop us from infiltrating them. Their cybernetics cannot overcome the fact that men, especially of the pig class, are cyclic. They think, functions, and live in cycles. This is more to their detriment than ours. Their science of control turns upon them to weaken and wreck their own institutions. How can a massive department of bureau or regiment with hundreds of personnel ever coordinate any activity without the strictest regimentation, without a massive meeting place to familiarize themselves with procedures, without badges or uniforms to identify each other, without systematized patterns of thought and behavior, without dependence on clear-cut orders? Simple pig types can only learn to function by route and in cycles. Procedures must be drilled into them, and only seldom, if ever, changed. It is quite easy for a pig to perform a particular function the same way, time after time. Once he has learned the function, it is not so easy to vary, especially when there are great numbers of the same type of individuals involved. What should be the result if each pig were given a different job each day? It is different in a different area, or if he had to vary his code every week, or think of for himself just one 8-hour shift. Chaos. If it weren't for the sergeants or the lieutenants and the routine, when the average pig ran out of gas, his car would have to be pushed out of the streets by the citizenry. I can't do it right. When his bullets run out, he would have only a club until he could check with the captain. Cyclic men equipped with only a few learned responses can be watched, cloaked, photographed, and anticipated. Their code isn't really a code at all. They are finished. A pig is a fool. They have numbers over the small vanguard elements and the social license to kill. But once we decided on the proper action, we will find that our enemies are vulnerable. For the soldiers of the people, the guerrillas, though they also must operate with the tightest structure and in complete harmony with their political branch, cycles are not a factor in their operations. The subtleties of fundamentals of urban guerrilla war can be broken down in their simplest terms in this way, and we're about to break it down. It's about to break it down right now. All right, here we go. Mobility. Only the light, portable, easily machined, and easily stolen weapons are employed by the guerrilla under normal circumstances. One rare occasion, he may hire or commander a piece of heavy equipment for an isolated or special purpose, which fits in with the improvised I can't read this word. Let me go. Extemporaneous. I gotta look up this word. Forgive me, everybody. Hope everybody's well. I hope everybody got water, got some food, did some self-care. I hope people did some self-care. and I hope people feel better than they did yesterday, and they have an ability to do something for others. Look at that. It's right there. You hear what it says.
Extemporaneous.
Extemporaneous, spoken or done without preparation. So improvised, extemporaneous, I gotta hear it again.
Extemporaneous.
Extemporaneous nature of this form of combat. The bomb, in all its various forms, Bangalore, mortars, satchel charge, hand grenades, and anti-tank rocket launchers, the sniper rifle, the light machine gun, the silent pistols, the flamethrowers, the poison dart, poison bullets, crossbows, the knife, the fist, all forms the guerrilla arsenal. Provisions must be made to move men and equipment in spite of the conditions of today's streets and roads in the cities. That means making use of the new four-wheel driven civilian type jeeps, station wagons, and motorcycles. The bicycles will regain popularity. Heavy vehicles, the jeeps, trucks, vans, all ordinary looking family or commercial looking vehicles, but armored with either plastic or steel, can be either rented or commanderied. All dwellings should be rented or expendable. They should be equipped so that when forced to leave by tunnel or other hidden exits, the place can be burned to create further confusion for the attacker and destroy evidence. Food and clothing should be purposely simple. Clothing must always be available for disguises. Although part of the guerrilla function is to hijack and commandery food in non-perishable forms from the enemy cultures and stockpiles, he should also learn to identify the food plants that grow wild all over the country, even in backyards and vacant lots. He should also learn to want less. So that is one of the conditions of becoming a urban guerrilla fighter. This is like, you have to be mobile. You have to be able to do things at a split decisions and stuff. All right, infiltration. Next section, infiltration. Right now we can be placing our soldiers inside various police and military prison staffs. Our more gifted and better educated comrades could end up in the intelligence units of the army and police. Our major source of weapons should come from our men placed in military under seemingly ordinary circumstances. This is our enemy's greatest weakness. An establishment greatest weakness is the need for personnel to resist the people. This lays them open to infiltration. The guerrilla army that operates within the cities is necessarily small. So we stop infiltration by being very selective and conducting thorough and murderous tests and making full use of the principles underlying departmentalization. The ambush. Thank you. The ambush. The only form of attack employed by the guerrilla forces is the ambush, the surprise attack. There must never be any front lines or defending a territory. The only engagement that are carried to completion are the ones that we are winning. After an initial attack, if the enemy regains himself and counterattacks, we disengage and simply go home to await the next opportunity when we can catch him asleep with his woman moving in convoys on the toilet. That's great. On the toilet. Thank you, everybody. Taking a break real quick. Let me look back. Yep. Everything looks the normalist. Glad whoever stay. Thank you for staying. Camouflage. Nothing ever appears outwardly as it is. The armor sheets of plastic and steel is fixed inside the vans and trucks in such a way as to make them appear normal when viewed from without. The military safe house with tunnels leading to in all directions and connecting with our other houses and storm drains, a manhole with bulletproof and all right plexiglass window encasement inside the house, camouflaged with heavy curtains, rooms with doors that are really booby trapped that works from the inside. Ooh, maybe that's what, you know what? Maybe that's something when it comes to the time that disabled people could do to their homes. Booby trap them. Keep them safer until like they're mobilized. Must be made to look like any other house along the block. These could be safe houses and shit too. We must dress the equipment ourselves with weaponry that will allow us to move even in units of a dozen or more without appearing to have anything other than private citizens pursuing their private interests. We will make use of all forms of disguise: mailman, police, telephone repairman, priest, nun, National Guardsmen. This principle will soon have them shooting at each other and turning the innocent agents and turning the innocents against them. The result: perfect disorder. I love this. Autonomous infrastructure. Yeah, this guy is a Maoist Fananis. This guy is great. He used to be part of the Black Panther Party until he was unalived at a very young age. Very well read, well thought out person, very well in dialectics, very well in all these things. So very good. This is one person that I glaze so much. This is one of the people I glaze so much. It used to be Mao, but now it's this guy. It's George Jackson, and it's Frantz Fanon. If it is, and I like Walter Rodney. Walter Rodney is an underappreciated comrade. People should read Walter Rodney's. Walter Rodney came out with How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. He was a professor. So he has multiple books. Very Grounding with My Brothers is beautiful. On the Russian Revolution from a Third World Perspective. I say that because that's the book title. And then Decolonial Marxism. And then like How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, which a lot of people have read. Well, no worries. I'm not the most well-educated. I'm just further along in the development, maybe. I don't know. There's lots of people on this app that are furtherly advanced in their development, in their Marxism, if they're Marxist or anarchism. Autonomous infrastructure. If it is our eventual goal to wear away the establishment's ability to produce and distribute goods, to feed its war machines, to organize any sort of social activities, then, of course, we must at the same time provide ourselves with means of performing this function on at least a subsistent level. Both the military and the political arms of the liberation movement must think of the provisioning of their vanguard elements and the people during the dark days when we stop the machines. Military supplies are stockpiled in advance with food staples, depression days, foraging in war years. Liberation gardens must be reduced and refined, must be reintroduced and redefined. See, this is developing a revolutionary political economy to support the People's Liberation Army. It's fucking a boy. Thank you. That's cool. The military must depend on the people for food. It must also prepare to feed the people from the enemy supply. So the guerrilla forces in one stage need the mass base of support. I keep saying that over and over again and over again. Unsanctioned, I'm doing a reading. You're welcome to come up and chill, but I'm doing a reading right now. But I'm not really like engaging with any guests right now. When I'm done with the book, when I'm done reading for tonight, I will. I promise you, I'll engage. So, glad you're here though, if you still are. Then you have the very healthy, spontaneous mass looting. Perfect disorder. At some point in the development of the overall struggle, revolutionary culture. Let's see. Oops, fair. Okay, no worries. There you go. Okay, let me read this. When you have the very healthy, spontaneous mass looting, perfect disorder, at some point in the development of the overall struggle, revolutionary culture, it will have to become totally independent of the old enemy culture, in keeping with Shea's theory of molding the new society around the struggle against the old. We will start from the beginning to build our own infrastructures. Here it is, the dual power in every possible area. People, stores, hospital, banks, buses, army. This dual power, this building of political infrastructures and the military is distinctly stated by the Minister of Defense of the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton. And this is Huey P. Newton. So again, they're taking on the fact that we need and require the mass space in order to be successful in a revolution. We recognize that in order to bring the people to the level of consciousness where they would seize the time, it would be necessary to serve their interests in survival by developing programs which would help them to meet their daily needs. For a long time, we've had such programs, not only for survival, but for organizational purposes. We not only have a breakfast program for school children, we have clothing programs, we have health clinics, which provide free medical and dental services. We have programs for prisoners and their families, and we are opening clothing and store factories to provide for more of the needs of the community. See, this is dual powers. This is the exact blueprint that we need to be doing. Most recently, we have guns and testings of research programs of sickle cell anemia. And we know that 98% of the victims of this disease are black people. To fail to combat this disease is to submit to G-side. To battle is the survival. All these programs satisfy the deep needs of the community, but they are not solutions to our problems. That's why they're called survival programs. That is why we call them survival programs, meaning survival pending revolution. We say that the survival programs of the Black Panther Party is like the survival kit of a sailor stranded on the raft. It helps him to sustain himself until he can get completely out of that situation. So survival programs are not answers or solutions, but they will help us to organize the community around true analysis and understanding of their situation. When consciousness and understanding is raised to the high level, then the community will seize the time and deliver themselves from the boot of their oppression. Huey P. Newton, Black Capitalism Reanalyzed. I think that's the name of the book. The Black Panther Intercommunal News Service, Saturday, June 5th, 1971. In the following, this strategy, we at once, quote, fill a very real vacuum, end quote, that already exists in the black colony, brown and poor white too, where the people are not being fed, clothed, provided with adequate medical treatment or transportation facilities. This will create the consciousness that comes from the introduction of people's government. It will help the people to understand the forces and energy of revolution. Quote, we are organizing them around their needs, end quote. Mass line. We will not distract them with such empty questions as who will be elected from which political party. All political parties, as things stand, will support the power complex. Any individual elected with either will either be supported, will either be a supporter of the established politics, or an quote unquote individual. What would help us, in fact, is to allow as many right-wing elements as possible to assume, quote, political power. The warning that, quote, our trust towards self-determination will bring on fascism, end quote. Are irresponsible, or better, unrealistic. The fascists already have power. The point is that some way must be found to expose them and combat them. An electoral choice of 10 different fascists is like choosing which way one wishes to die. Let me repeat that. The point is that some way, wait. The fascists, okay, here we go. The fascists already have power. The point is that some way must be found to expose them and combat them. Here we go. The electoral choice of 10 different fascists is like choosing which way one wishes to die. The holder of so-called high public office is always merely an extension of the hated ruling corporate class. It is to our benefit that this person be openly hostile, dystopic, unreasoning. We are not living in a nation where left-wing parties hold 80 out of the 200 seats in the congressional body, or even 8 out of 200. This is a huge nation dominated by the most reactionary and violent ruling class in the history of the world. There, where the majority of the people just simply cannot understand that they are existing on the misery and discomfort of the world. They have been hypnotized into believing that criticism of the expansionist policies of imperialism is really isolationist or injurious to both the USA and the world. They have us pacified in thinking that imperialism is okay, that we're there to liberate the world. We are faced with two choices: to continue as we have done for 40 years, fanning our pamphlets against the hurricane and starting to build a new revolutionary culture that we will be able to turn on our old culture. Collectively, we have the choice. The Black Colony is, as it sits out here alone, as no such choice. In the report from Jonathan Jackson in early 1970, he said, and this is Jonathan Jackson, the genius, we are not going to wait until the USA attacks the people of the USA, or Angola, Mozambique, or any of the other African nations in foment. We can't wait. We shouldn't even allow this thing to happen in Indochina. Banks of America, Chase Manhattan, First National, Citibank, oh my God, here we go, of New York, Irving Trust Companies, the Morgan Monopoly Manufacturing, Hanover Trust, the Continental National Bank, First National Bank of Chicago, Bankers Trust Company, and a dozen lesser firms all have great financial interests in the USA. Now, in 1966, the USA investment in one small African nation was $667 million. It almost doubled since then. In 1968, 70 to 75% of all goods from the USA entered the USA, duty-free. Soon, we'll be asking to fight the people of the USA because they're getting their people's army together. No, I am not waiting for them to attack a new part of Africa or Asia. I am entering the war now on the side of the Vietnamese. The Black Colony, and that's the end. The Black Colony, USA, has little choice. We must enter the war on the side of the majority of the world's people, even if it means fighting the USA. majority. We fight to live, and we are learning to fight. It'll be a war, to the knife if necessary. We can't wait until the generations that thinks of black people as the N-word and the rest of the world as G words when they call Chinese Asian people the C word, the SH word, which I think they called the G one, I don't know, but even the CH one is also, and then like the bad word against like Hispanic people, etc., have been educated away. It may be the reverse that happens. We black people and Chinese and Asian people may be blown away first. Or if we survive, what will we inherit? A desert. Those are all question marks. We'll mass the people. We can. Perhaps that won't be the whole lower class. We'll mass ourselves and any ally we may be able to draw from the whole class structure, and will attempt to wage a war on property and property rights. Essentially that it is the fight, but that even then some men will die, as in all forms of war. But if we cannot draw the support that is necessary for such a war, then we see a positive benefit for the majority of the world's people in the reduction of this whole country in the vast wasteland and the graveyards for 200 million of history's most damnable fools. In People's War, urban style, each political move towards an organized people around their realistic needs will support a corresponding military move. This unity of politics and war will increase the overall revolutionary consciousness by degrees to the point where mass consciousness can be said to exist. The Black Panther Party is the largest and the most powerful political force existing outside the establishment politics. It draws this power from the people. It is the people's neutral political vanguard. Now, let us assume the existence of a small, tightly knit, totally committed, and separate military vanguard such as Jonathan Jackson's attempt to build. Jonathan was my brother and closest comrade. I knew him. He was a real super black person. He worked at it hard. He took complete control of himself. He learned every weapon in the human arsenal, from the flying side thrust foot attack and the quick draw snapshot of the manufacture and use of the mortar. He knew 6,000 ways to unalive a man, 30 with a simple stroke of an enemy hand or foot. He was 17 years old when he died in the service of the people, on the one side of the black colonies, and with the courage of the whole colonized world. Let's assume where Jonathan is concerned that, quote, a battle cry reaches some receptive ear, and another hand reaches down to take up our weapon, end quote. We have two perfectly harmonious fists, the left, quote, front ram, end quote, of the Black Panthers' political thrust, and the left, quote, black ram of the August 7th movement. Let's further assume that the nation is one huge city, that we can call by its rightful update New Johannesburg. This clarifies the understanding of the Urban People's War, the concept of, quote, the true internationalism, end quote, and the connection, interactions, processes, and efforts of the people at war under the leadership of the vanguard, which wields the double-edged sword against the isolated enemy elements. All the cities of this country can be treated as one interconnected entity due to the necessities of exchange and interconnections caused by specialization. We can now, be right back, no worries. We can now deal with them as a single entity because of the national character of the vanguard party and the revolutionary consciousness within the inner black colony. Vanguards. We need vanguards. All Anglo-Western cities are generally the same when they are reduced to the critical features that support them. I could be talking about London, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Paris, Berlin, or Rome instead of Johannesburg. Jonathan, I think it's I'm right. Mao pictured the USA as a city of the world's surrounded, besieged, and slowly strangled to death by the third force under arms. Using Mao's theoretical springboard, I wish to make further comments on the hypothetical super technological city-states and its vulnerability. You had it right at first? Thank you. Any honest expert in the overall strategy and logistics of classic Western mechanized warfare and the war of the industrial-based established state will admit that the scientific guerrilla forces must be outnumbered 10-1 in manpower by the mechanized forces if it is to be contained at all. The establishment army, the defenders of property of the industrial complex, armed with the tools of weapons of heavy industry, must field 10 men for just one guerrilla. This point is the strongest indication of the relative effectiveness of the two fighting styles. Recent report, March of 1971, coming in from the Indochina theater, describing such debacles as 80 USA 40-ton tanks raced in wild retreat before the guerrillas. Puppet soldiers of the USA mercenaries, in their haste to disengage from the people's forces, are lashing themselves to the runners of rescued helicopters. They're running! Disaster for the man with the most and the best equipment is threatening and imminent. Now is the time for us to fill the streets with our protests, clog the tunnels and backstairs, to convert totalitarian governments with every weapon at our disposal. I'm enjoying this. The effectiveness of rallies and mass demonstrations has to come to an end. Their purpose as diacritically altered, but the general tactic remains sound. Today, the rally affords us the opportunity to effect intensive organization of projects and programs that will form the infrastructure of the communes. If the mass rallies close as they have in the past, with few speeches and a pamphlet, we can expect no more results than in the past. 2 hours later, the people will be Americans again, instead of people. But going among the quote people, end quote, at each gathering with clipboards and pens, and painfully asserting that each can contribute a clear-cut, carefully defined political project, is a distinction between intensive organization and the sterile, stilted attempts to build new unions, rank and file, etc., or elect a socialist legislator. However, as we start the projects that will eventually move the workers and the whole community into the open conflict with the ruling clique, we own personal observation lead me to the independent conclusion that the political vanguard and even its earlier project need to be defended. Clearly, the political cadre needs protection from the enemy culture's military, its secret police, and vigilantes, quote, death squads, end quote. ICE agents. Just read Hegel instead. Okay, sure. Armed struggle is at the very heart of revolution. If the problems of the people cannot be redressed because the necessary resources are in the hands of the relatively few families and individuals, it means we are going to have to seize this property. This is ultra left revision. Oh, you're talking about Hegel. Bro, where is the revolutionary potential of the tactics and strategy of Hegel? What is his tactics on revolution and enticing and developing vanguard systems in order to entice and to bring revolution? Hegel is a Marxist-Leninist. Hegel was never able to develop fully into a Marxist-Leninist. In fact, Hegel himself was criticized by Marx and Engels about his mystification, his idealistic mindset. Like they took his dialectics, but they put it into a materialistic aspect. Hegel has no solutions and nothing in order to be able to dictate a revolutionary cause in the United States and the infrastructures that we're in. I'm sorry, but Marx advanced Hegel, and then Lenin advanced Marx, and then Maoism advanced Marxist-Leninism. That is the negation of the negation, the process. This property. Seizing property okay, sure, dude. What is the principal contradictions of the United States? Tell me that one. Seizing property has always meant some form of war, some form of armed struggle. If the history is our guide, is clearly records that nothing of any great value has ever changed hands without its struggle, or at least a show of or threat of violence. Men simply don't surrender what they think is their privilege and property except by force. History itself is economically motivated class struggle. There is simply no way to compare this society or its, hello Gabby, historical experience with that of the tiny colonial country like Chile. So we got a Hegelian in here. Oh, it was just muted for 5 seconds. We have a Hegelian in here saying that I should just read Hegel instead of reading from George Jackson, Gabby. Fucking wild. Chile, Allende, is not seizing property. His government is, quote unquote, bullying property, buying property, until the Chilean ruling capitalist class is suppressed. The Chilean revolution is as meaningless as the Swedish experiment. Socialist governments which attempt to coexist with capitalist economies completely forget the economic motive of human social history. Revisionism has given birth to countless, quote, socialistic, oh my gosh, hermaphrodites. I can't say the damn word. I gotta go look up the word. God damn. Hey, everybody. Oh, look. Yeah. Gabby, does Hegel have the answer for a people's war or people's revolution? Did he ever come up like Lenin did come up with the insurrection, and so did Marx and Engels. They talked about insurrection, but I don't think Hegel ever talked about insurrection. Did he? I don't know. Culture. Oh my God. I'm gonna look up this. I think it's him. I can't say it. It might be a bad word. Let me look. This is gonna take a bit. Oh. Help me say it, Mr. Computer. Hermaphrodites, I think. I don't think this is a good word. Hold on.
Hermaphrodite.
Oh. It's hermaphrodites, which is an organism having sex organs and other sexual characteristics that are not clearly male or female. Okay. Ew. Related to or donating an organism having sex. Okay. Always to the detriment of the people's power. Yeah, I thought so. From the lumpen looters? Oh my God. This is why it's important to advance your theories. This is why it's important to advance, because the nature and the development of the lumpen proletariat, especially underneath the guise of the United States, is a different condition. Strains, tortures, definitions of social existence and organization have trapped the people in so many contradictions that most of them give up all hopes of harnessing the modern industrial state or even understanding it. England, before the Tories, were between the Tories, is, quote, liberal socialist, end quote. Military dictatorships, clearly totalitarian, are ruled by cliques traveling under the designations of, quote unquote, revolutionary councils, etc. No argument has any substance if it conflicts with the objective conditions and clear incontrovertible facts. In our case, these facts can be read from the national dailies in the the arbitrary section. Black people who seriously advocate revolution are unallied. Black people who attack property relations are slated for the graveyard or the prison camps. It is a national culture tradition. Since these are the facts, it follows that an oppressed class which does not strive to learn to use arms or acquire arms only deserves to be treated like slaves. We cannot forget, unless we become bourgeoisie pacifists or opportunists, that we are living in a class society, that there is no way out of this society, and there can be none except by the means of class struggle. In every class society, whether it is based in slavery, serfdom, or as it presents on wage labor, and the oppressing class is armed. This is Lenin's selected works. All right, sweet. Vanguard cannot stay alive long enough to affect a broad consciousness unless it possesses the latent threat of force. They're going to claim that our clothing projects, the People's Bazaar, the People's Stores, and decentralized cottages industries are fronts for stolen property. The establishment will claim that the Vanguard Party is feeding and clothing people with goods stolen from the enemy culture. They'll claim that we're buying it from the city-states lumpen, who steal everything they can sell, or that we're ripping it off ourselves. Of course, this will be used to justify an attack upon the political projects or infrastructures. The assault will be justified by them in a dozen different ways. Whether we establish ourselves in the force or the storefront or in our homes, they will attack us behind the fire ordinances, the sanitation departments, the anonymous tips. The establishment mercenaries will break in shooting, and all of us who are not unalived will go to jail for violating a fire ordinance, resisting arrest, attempting murder, and receiving stolen property, etc. It is a predictable as nightfall. I am convinced that any serious organizing of people must carry with it from the start a potential threat of revolutionary violence. Without it, the establishment forces will succeed in isolating the political organizers and closing down his projects before the people can feel its benefits. That's because they take the organizers and shit, and the ways of isolation is arresting them and putting them in prison. The camps. Prison camps, as they call them. All right. Where did I go? All right, there we go. It's self-determination requires a small hidden, highly trained army equipped with the very best and the most destructive of all military weapons, and the bodyguard of the counter-terrorists. The Vanguard Party distinguished itself in the service of the people and superimposes itself over the old culture throughout the city-states. Tactics designed to further the development of revolutionary consciousness must be based upon the prevailing state of class and race antagonisms created out of the new relationship. We can be certain that the nucleus of the clandestine army will already exist then. The government's repressive agencies will also be well infiltrated by black people and other revolutionary people. Infiltration is the work of the professional revolutionary. Infiltrating the establishment's protective agencies will also tend to neutralize the ruling class's attempt to isolate black vanguard communes from the large body of the class structure. All efforts to isolate the vanguard community must be resisted. The black colony must effectively invite other revolutionary people to follow their example. We must give refuge to the refugees and eventually work out some means of coordinating or operations with theirs at every level. However, we cannot delay our own preparations towards the united black revolutionary culture. No one will undertake to aid us unless they sense the power of our movement. It is black people who must play not only the role of liberating the black colony, but also the leading role in the liberation of the whole city-states. To expect that someone else will take the full responsibility for our liberation is suicide. We'll be asked to be patient, quote unquote, for another 100 to 150 years. We'll get stuck with long theoretical explanations on consciousness or objective conditions when it's clear that consciousness will not grow unless there is someone among us willing to feed it. Consciousness grows in spirals. Growth implies feeding and being fed. We feed consciousness by feeding people, addressing ourselves to their needs and the basic and social needs, organizing towards the united national left. After the people have created something that they are willing to defend, a wealth of new ideas and an autonomous subsistence infrastructure, then they are ready to be brought into quote unquote open conflict with the ruling class and its supporters. This conflict must extend to every level of capitalist production and distribution. Consciousness of our power will grow as a result of this mass contact with the ruling forces. There is no question that people must be organized and educated to benefit the people's government before they can successfully move against their class enemies. However, there seems to be some question as to how seriously we should take ourselves in our work of organizing. Yay, someone that's nice, finally. When we meet resistance, should we acquiesce, withdraw, wait it out, or intensify? Should we meet violent reaction with more determined violence? The type that put 80 tanks to fight in Laos? In other words, if the fascists don't like what we're doing and attack us through a lynch mob, the police forces, the judicial branch of their government, we should relent. Should we relent? Or should we accept their violent reaction as a natural response to our challenge and organizing against it? Let me look at something. Woo! I might come to an end. I'm going to read. Yeah. Reaction is a natural response to our challenge and organize against it. Every step, every stage forward and unified black commune will meet great resistance. Hold on a second. Yeah, they touched on that, Gabby, earlier. That the urban centers are the center point for urban guerrilla warfare, because we're going from the centers to the countryside, because everything is the nervous center. The town centers are the nervous center. So we went through that. Yeah, this resistance will come in some form of violence. It is clear that if we don't learn to overcome all resistance, no forward movement will be made. Discovering ways to meet and overcome resistance, demonstrating to ourselves that, quote, we can, is fundamental ascendant to the growth of revolutionary consciousness, because we'll be under attack every step of the way. 100 years ago, it would have been the same. 100 years ago from today, it would be the same. We'll take our mules and 40 acres now, collectivize them, defend them, invite other revolutionary people to follow our example, make allies, then leap to destroying the fascists. Pseudo mass culture from within. As the people move into more significant areas of anti-establishment projects, they will be hurled violently into contact with the defenders of the present state of property relations at the level of production, distribution, and property rights in general. Then we will discover that their power and their new fighting style actually depends on their greater potential for violence. The size of and complexities of these things are not an index of its strength. This struck me forcefully one evening as I flipped through one of the nation's new weeklies and spotted a photograph of a huge self-propelled 155 millimeter cannon laying on its side, its barrel spiked forever. A man on foot, armed with a rocket that weighed less than 40 pounds, had destroyed it. The larger and more complex of the city-states, the more it is dependent upon all related parts. The cannon was hit at its base, in the moving part of its thread, which were destroyed, and the death machine fell of its own weight. How can the super technological state operate without electricity or power, without water, transport, communication, sewage systems, utilities? None of these can be protected. Their sheer size alone makes it impossible. So he's talking about the enemies. How can the establishment, because when he says the establishment, he's talking about the bourgeoisie establishment, protect an electrical supply line and the thousands of transformers, etc. Effective positioning of the guards is militarily impossible. A man every 25 feet up and down the million miles of lines can't protect it. It would also break the class that paid for the protection, since a break at any one point renders powerless huge sections of the area served. The cost of supporting the guards would bankrupt any nation. The guerrillas would simply overwhelm the guardians point by point. I think this is the essence of a poor man's war, the essence of a guerrilla strategy, the protracted war of the workers' bees. The only valid form of union activity is seizure of union leadership by any means necessary. We must call strikes to enforce our demands on capital. To enforce the strike, we must stop the plant's power source. Standing in the gateway with the placard and the pamphlet alone will not dull the workers. Short-term interest and wage slavery. The very first impulse is to eat. With the right-wing union leadership gone and the black worker revolutionized through his contact with black commune, even the fascists who exist without any sense of community or class consciousness can possibly be won over or at least rendered neutral. Either way, they won't be able to break strikes with the power lines down. The power of our military strategy sitting beside our political infrastructure depends on constant attacks. Improvisation, aggression, and attack on property, the utilities that feed the superstate, direct and indirect and direct attacks at the productive points of distribution systems. It's all of a strategy. As I stated, the Western military experts admit that the mechanized establishment guard must outnumber the attacking workers by 10 to 1. What they cannot afford to admit is that even with the numerical superiority that they cannot win, they're learning they cannot win. Sorry, they're learning this in every theater of combat in a class war. They could never even raise a 10 to 1 numerical superiority, even if they succeed in employing the degenerate elements of the lower class created by long histories of counter-positive mobilization of reactionary mass society. As a mercenary or vigilante in the earlier stages, the advantage is still ours. At 10 to 1, we still enjoy the strategic military superiority if we are attacking, because they must defend so many different points, vital to the order of continuity of their life support system. All at the same time. The points to be protected will always outnumber the units who are available to protect them. The super technological city-states have grown so complex that it is completely dependent upon its thousands of related parts. This is a guide, everybody. It means it can be updated, of course, but it's a guide. It's a base foundation. It was grown so large that no force can be fielded to protect all its vital parts. The essence of the guerrilla techniques is to cripple and finally stop the life support system of the enemy state, class, or state. The advantage of the anti-establishment force can be best understood by picturing the need of the establishment forces to spread themselves thin in the vain attempt to protect the mechanical base of their source of power, which of course works out to be the various forms of productive and non-productive property. The mobile, quote, have-nots, the attackers, can concentrate his forces, even though initially they are numerically inferior, to actually outnumber and overwhelm the thinned out forces of the establishment by attacking at 1 or 2 points at a time. In Mao's Selected Works, Volume 2, he speaks of ingenuity and mobility as necessary qualities of any guerrilla operations, because that's what we're going to have to do. The stage is set. It is time to start arming for defensive strategies and defensive revolutions. It's time to start communes. It's time to start the people's government. It's time to start the people's distribution and getting their basic needs. It's time to start these communes. This should have been started during George Jackson's time. And this is and we're going into Mao Zedong's like that. I read all of 5. I read volume 2. It's fucking great. I would suggest people reading On Protracted People's War and what Mao talks about in the guerrilla warfare. And then going on to like Che Guevara. And even going back to when Lenin talked about insurrection in guerrilla too. And going back to even Marx and Engels talking about what is needed by like an insurrection too. Like starting from that point and moving forward and seeing development of guerrilla warfare and tactics and strategies, you know? The ancients said, wait, am I right? Yeah. The ancients said, quote, ingenuity is varying tactics depends on mother wit, end quote. This ingenuity, quote unquote, which is what we mean by flexibility, is the contribution of the intelligent comrade. Flexibility does not mean recklessness. Recklessness must be rejected. Flexibility consists in the intelligent commander's ability to take timely and appropriate measures on the basis of the objective conditions after, quote, judging the hour and sizing up the situation. The situation includes the enemy's situation, our situation, and the terrain. And its flexibility is, quote, ingenuity and varying tactics. On the basis of this ingenuity, we can win more victories in quick decisions, offensive warfare on the exterior lines, changing the balance of forces in our favor, gaining the initiative over the enemy and overwhelming and crushing him so that the final victory will be ours. This is from Mao Zedong Selected Work, Volume 2. George Jackson. All right. I'm going to read this little bit, and then I should be done for the night. Good timing. If there are 20 points in the city-state, to be protected, and 10 units of protection, clearly an attack force of 1 could destroy 10 of the 20 points within opposition. The 10 points have remained and are guarded by the 10 units of protection must now meet the attackers on a one-on-one basis. The term, quote, attack explicitly means, quote, first strike, and first strike translates to advantage. Total repression and genocide are not possible if we organize ourselves for survival first. If we first construct the commune and sense of community and common interests of class, the support systems, the objective conditions are present. To postpone our liberation with the excuse that the quote unquote people aren't ready is to underestimate them. In fact, it's like saying they don't have the mentality to act in their defense. The repeating shotgun is the deadliest weapon in the world for close range urban fighting. This is for educational purposes. Where did I go? World liberation. The people. All right, there it is. Shotgun is the deadliest weapon in the fight. They are simple. Wait. Deadliest for their. Wait. Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Is a weapon in the world of close-range urban fighting. They are simply to make, maintain, and use. Anyone can be effective with a scatter gun. One simply points and squeezes the trigger. If the thing to be shot is moving, follow through with your swing. Tanks are obsolete. They can be rendered harmless with a dollar's worth of grenades propelled from a muzzle of a shotgun by a blank cartridge. As a tank moves down any city streets, it has placed itself in a defile. On a cost effectiveness basis, the most destructive weapon in the gasoline bomb. Enough gasoline, soaps, shavings, and potassium chloride in Minecraft could flip a tank over on its side or throw from the windows of our defiles. The gasoline bomb could incinerate the largest army. We can only be repressed if we stop thinking and stop fighting. People who refuse to stop fighting can never be repressed. They either win or they die, which is more attractive than losing and dying. The premise of politics remains, but we must now prepare for armed confrontation by no stretch of the imagination. We hope to overthrow so determined an enemy without force. We will win. George Jackson. The next one will be the American mind. And I'll read it. I'll read it right now. I'll read this little part. And then we'll be done. Frankenstein need for a servant was the expression of his diseased ego. So he created the demented, ugly creature, pathological, strong, and huge. Did you hear that? The United States has created these things. Get more into it later. But yes, now's the time to start studying guerrilla warfare tactics. Now's the time to get out in your neighborhoods and look at strategic points of views and all those things, and where choke points are, protection points are, because they're going to happen in the localities and stuff like that. It is time to arm in Minecraft. It is time to get defensive things so that way you can defend yourself. The time is now. Revolutionary physicality is inevitable. It should have happened long ago when this book came out, but it didn't. But it doesn't mean that it can't happen, and it is not beginning to happen. So I read this book, get the strategies down, know that we are in the revolutionary period where we should be utilizing these tactics in order to bring on revolution and liberation. So I love this book. This is like my 9th time reading this. It is so bent up. The pages are so dirty. Like, oh my God, like I've used this book a lot. I love this book. I glaze George Jackson. I shouldn't anymore, but I do. I glaze him. I think he's a fucking amazing comrade. Yeah, and amazing insights and amazing like what should be done and why it should be done and what's going on, and the class analysis and the analysis of the United States and the black colony, and understanding that that black people have to build their communes and stuff, and that and the other thing is too, the willingness to organize with any revolutionary element that seeks for liberation. The united fronts of the revolutionary groups. We need to consolidate, I fear, but that's just one person's opinion, and that's just coming from a Marxist that is a beginner Marxist, honestly. So I still have lots to learn. I'm trying to be a good Marxist. But anyways, does anybody have any questions or anything before I close it out? Because I gotta go feed Rufus and maybe do some sprints. The group I'm with wants me to do more physicality stuff to get and to be prepared. Oh my God, look, it's fucking Gabby. Holy shit. Oh my God, it's Gabby.
Hello.
Where have you been, ghost of the past? The scepter of Gabby?
I don't know. I've been around.
Spectre now. You're a specter. Is it specter? The specter of communism, right? The specter of communism.
I am a specter. I'm the best specter in the goddamn world.
You're the specter of revolutionary thought.
Damn right I am. I miss you so much, Drew. I miss you so fucking much. How are you doing?
Great. I had to run. So my the cadre that I'm not on the cadre. I'm part of the mass.
Remember? Wait. I just want to say, remember, don't say too much online. That's all
yeah, I won't.
Don't say too much.
This is not too much. The cadre. I think they want me to be part of the cadre, but they want me to first get the pew-pews. You know what I mean? Anyways, they got me walking 1.5 miles every day, which is going to help Rufus too. They got me doing 20 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, 20 squats, and then they want me to do 6 to 10 sprints, 25 feet sprints, and walk back. Because, what do you think? I think you can do this without saying it. What do you think they're preparing me for? Right?
Oh, I already know.
Yeah.
Community. In the best way to say it, community defense.
Yes.
Yeah.
But as soon as we get to you, Doodley, and Doodley and Gabby, what are your thoughts? Who do you want to go first? You guys work that out. Who goes first? You or Gabby?
I'll go first since Gabby's being Princess Teacup right now.
Princess Teacup. Go ahead.
Or Comrade Teacup. Okay, so I do agree with what George Jackson is saying. But you can definitely tell that this needs some updates because
Yeah,
while
yeah.
it is true, that like this stuff happens systemically, there is a lot of like outdated language and also just like language that we recognize the harm with being used. But yeah, it's very insightful. And Gabby's gone.
Of course.
It's very insightful. It's very insightful, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say though,
And-
but like a lot of the strategies and tactics that he talks about is time and space. Methodology is still time and space because it is the town centers that is the most concentrated, right? Because we don't live in a semi-feudal, semi-colonial. We don't live in we don't have a mass peasantry, right? And a lot of the centers are centered in these town centers. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's why the generality and the generality is urban fighting, right? So on that generality, right? He's right tactically, but like again, like time and space develops, new things develop. You know, I would agree that like that, but this is definitely a foundational work in order to be successful in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 I'm just saying that
Don't mess my
it
great
is
man
correct.
up. Don't mess
Yeah,
with my great manning of George Jackson, which I need to stop doing, honestly.
Yeah, I was
love
about
him.
to say
Great
he's not a
he's great.
donut. You might want to quit glazing him.
Yeah, but he's a great theoretician too. Good on his theory.
Yeah,
and stuff.
he's great at theory, but we have to realize that the theory they made is now our tools.
Exactly, because this book is a tool. It's supposed to be a tool. It's supposed to be utilized as a weapon to be able to engage further the advancements. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's up?
he's less connected now than he used to be from the tool that we are using.
Because he's
So
on
we
a-
need to make sure that we don't great man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because he's unalive now. He's passed, and we must honor him.
May he
at all
may he
points.
rest in power.
Exactly that. What's up, Gabby? What would you like to
But
say?
what's it? Sorry,
Is Doodly done?
sorry for sorry.
It's okay. You're good. Are you complete, Doodly?
Uh, okay, yeah, that and also, I know you're excited about like the stuff you get to do, but please make sure that you don't reveal too much.
I'm not. I asked him
Yeah,
about it
gotcha.
too. How do I go online and stuff like that? Basically, it's the regular OPSEC. No one needs to know who's in the group, how many people are in the group, what the information, what the messages are being sent. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
But even
okay.
still,
I'm done.
even if you're not saying much, and even if you're not like saying like specific, if even with the limited information that you are giving, that can be enough to have people snoop around and find out something. You know?
yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
generalities can reveal specifics.
All right, sounds
Exactly.
good. I'm just new to this thing, but like, oh my god, like my shoulders and my legs, they're freaking jello right now.
Oh,
Like what's
yeah,
it? Like what's
and-
it? Like what's it? If anything, comments like just say like, oh, Gabby, you know, I love this new body fitness club that I just joined. You know, I'm doing sit ups, man.